It is now 5:07. We're having a bit of a late start.
Be positive and responsive.
Okay. So we'll have public input now on agenda items. It's, no, this is the public input agenda items, yes. That wasn't, apologize for that omission on the agenda. Okay, well, having none, then we'll go to the action items. Approval of the agenda. Are there any changes, Mr. Superintendent?
No. Well, yes, H.
Four- 4H. Item 4H and your recommendation?
To move it to public input?
Okay, in that sense, the rationale for that is that their item as it's put does not meet the Open Meetings Act in criteria of giving some semblance of what it represents. It only has his name. It doesn't say what the issues are. I apologize to Mr. Jaramillo. He is able to speak at the public input at the end of the agenda. And there again, although he's already submitted a request and we certainly did not fulfill our obligation to that, we will entertain your interest in going forward to the next meeting on the agenda with the description of your topics. So, is there any other change to the agenda?
No.
Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to, were there any members that had a suggested change to the agenda? Not seeing any, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Now a vote, a roll call vote. Mr. Terraza?
Yes.
Ms. Murillo?
Yes.
Myself, Gilbert Wadiana, yes. Ms. Begay?
Yes.
And Ms. Dean?
Yes.
Okay, all members voting yes, the motion passes unanimously. Okay, the first item is the annual school board reorganization. Typically, our policy states that the board will have an election of officers through this reorganization at the month after the election, which used to be in February and so called for the election in March. That changed when the election moved to November, as required by the state. So the following month after that is the December. So the board had been doing it in January. And accordingly, now we shall do it in January. And we'll consider further options to maybe even moving it towards the date of the beginning of the school year versus in the middle of the school year. But for right now, we will follow the current practice, which is a reorganization of the board. Therefore, I shall entertain motions for nominations, or I should say nominations for president of the school board.
Mr. President, I'd like to nominate Ms. Murillo to be president.
Nomination noted. Are there any other nominations? Okay, absent any further nominations, she will be nominated as she will be board president by acclamation. But for the purpose of minutes, we shall take a vote. Ms. Dean?
Approve.
Yes.
Okay, okay. Myself, approve?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Okay, the vote is unanimous. Ms. Murillo is now president of the board. Do we have to do it like 13 times? And then
Oh, yeah. No, that's speaker.
Okay, okay.
Wait, so do you want me to take it over now?
Yes, it becomes effective.
Okay, well, thank you for the confidence in the vote. And since this will be the first time I'm running a meeting, we have a strong board. I expect they will support me and guide me. So now we will open up nominations for vice president. Do we have any nominations?
I nominate Gabby Begay.
Okay, Ms. Dean nominated Ms. Begay. Any other nominations?
I'll second.
Okay. Any further nominations for vice president? Okay, so nominations will be closed. We'll take a roll call vote, starting with Ms. Dean,
Yes.
Mrs. Begay,
Yes.
Mr. Guadiana,
Yes.
myself. Okay, so now we're going to open up nominations for secretary. Do we have any nominations for secretary of the board?
I nominate Mr. Terrazas.
And I'll second that nomination.
Okay, so we have Mr. Terrazas nominated for board secretary. Do we have any other nominations? Seeing no further nominations, we will go ahead and have a roll call vote. Mrs. Dean,
Yes.
Ms. Begay,
Yes.
Mr. Guadiana,
Yes.
myself, yes, and Mr. Terrazas.
Yes.
Okay, congratulations. You will continue to be our secretary.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to action item C. Consideration of membership. I think something's wrong with my battery. It keeps turning off, but, so just let me know if it dies. Okay, I think it's okay. You'll just have to let me know. Okay, C, consideration of membership to the New Mexico School Board Association. I didn't put this on the agenda. Would somebody like to explain this for us?
Sure. So I serve on Teach Plus. It's a different hat I wear. And there's an initiative right now to have more training hours for board members. As it currently stands, the New Mexico School Board Association and the New Mexico School Board only require 5 hours. And I thought maybe we could take a different direction as a board and get more training through PED and get more training hours rather than attending their conferences, which seem
as it's supposed to, represents the school board members in their highest priority. I support this motion because it circumvents necessarily putting the children first, the students first. And so I also have seen very little moving and acknowledging the deficit in our education, being our state ranking is the lowest it can be. Yet there's no initiative to address that specifically. So I have attended both trainings from PED and as well as State School Board Association. And I find the Public Education Department to provide a higher quality of training.
Okay. And so would anyone like to make a motion?
I just have a quick question. So is there a fee regarding an annual fee or registration and what does that cost to the board and the school?
I believe it's a $1,000 a year fee. Is it on? Yes.
There's a fee. I don't know what it is offhand. In fact, I just saw the bill today for this school year, which hasn't been paid. So, but to PED, I'm not aware of any sort of membership or
No.
yeah. So
There's no membership to
Right.
PED. The question is specifically to State Board Association.
yes, in fact, I have that there. If you want me to run and get it, I could give you the amount. But it is probably it's more than $1,000.
How much?
It is more than $1,000.
Okay.
The membership.
And another point that I'd like to bring up is that not being a member of the School Board Association does not prohibit us from attending their training. It just means that we pay a higher fee. We pay the non-member fee for. So I'll make a second to the motion.
I
Or
don't
did
think
you
I-
make the motion?
No, I'd like to make a motion for consideration of membership to New Mexico School Board Association. So I guess removal of membership.
Okay, so we have a motion to remove our membership to the New Mexico School Board Association. Do I hear a second?
I'll second. But could that be an amended movement to not renew our, rather than immediately remove, because we've already paid the fee for the school year, to not renew the membership at the beginning of the next school year, effective beginning of the new school year?
Do we have a date? We renew?
Yes, it's based on the school year, per school year. So if you want me to, we'll go ahead and pay for this current year.
This current school year?
Yes, you guys let me know what you want to do.
So would that be the 22-23 school year?
Yes.
So even though we've already attended at least the one in December,
Can I, Madam President, can I make a amended motion for non-renewal of membership to the New Mexico School Board Association come the new school year?
so there is a motion to not renew our membership to the New Mexico School Board Association in the
I'll second.
Okay, so we had a nomination and a second. Go ahead. Is there any debate? Okay, let's go ahead and do a roll call vote. Ms. Dean,
Yes.
Ms. Begay,
Yes.
Mr. Guadiana,
Yes.
myself, yes. Mr. Terrazas?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes that we will not renew our New Mexico School Board Association in the upcoming school year. Okay, so we'll move on now to item D, approval of district's legislative request for 2023 session. Mr. Kennan, would you like to discuss this?
We met, and I have this in my superintendent report. We met with area legislatures, and we had made a request to them earlier when Western University hosted a forum. And I've always believed that, you always ask for a little more than what you think you're going to get. So we upped it, we doubled it, and we're up over about 800,000. And it's almost all, well, it is all security. It's cameras, it's keyless entry on the outside doors, and this is district wide. And so it's there for you.
Would that also include radios, radios for staff as well as,
Yeah, but I don't think we have enough radios for what, our goal is. In fact, this 800 and some isn't going to cover everything that we need. But it's something that if we get that, then maybe the next legislative session we can add to it. So it does include some radios, but not as many as we want. And you also mentioned scanners. They didn't include that.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How are these items, how did you come up with them? Was there a
Well,
committee?
I followed what Dr. Spalletta gave Western, and we went along with the same thing. They had already made that, and the legislators already had that list with them. And I met with them on Friday, and I was going to talk about that in the superintendent's report, but I might as well do it now. I gave them a more enhanced list of exactly the same stuff, just trying to get more of it. But to answer your question, I couldn't tell you, but I would imagine it was within conversations with Victor, technology, and with the board president of what the district needs. And it's, security obviously is a high priority of the board.
Mr. Arambula, would you like to add anything? I mean, were you involved in the discussions?
Yes, correct. I was involved with assisting in writing the application. This is a continuance of over the last 5 years that we've been going after any security funding. Last year, we didn't receive anything. We received transportation. And the years before that, we've requested to fund some projects. We just haven't been fortunate. The last one that they funded for emergency communications was for our phone system, which is currently almost complete.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I would also like to add some questions. I adamantly advocated for radios, being that would be the most effective in the event of something going wrong, especially that of an active shooter. Being able to communicate with one source of communication available to all staff is extremely critical. It is not only a communication top down, it is also a communication bottom up, and location is much more widespread. There was mention about the use of telephones for communicating. I find that to be extremely limiting. And if there can be a PA system, then
Superintendent Spalletta have wanted all IAs, all teachers.
Right.
So that's what that order is for. That is to
Then
accommodate all of that. Also, the phone
taken by
system are
surprise.
because everything's expensive. So the future for our phone system. So it was cheaper to and more beneficial for the district to be in 911 compliance because we were not in compliance. So with our new phone system, we will be in compliance. That's a very time-consuming task that we've been having to come up with doing the phone rosters and whatnot right now. So the future is to tie into all of our PA systems. So the high school and San Lorenzo were in desperate need of a PA system because they're very outdated. So with this phone system, this is a step on eliminating the most expensive portion of it, and then moving into replacing and installing IP speakers in the areas that it's hard to get communication to. So the future for that is to tie speakers into our
radios with antennas, and
They're actually small two-way radios. So those will be
teachers
on
and
the,
IAs are expected to carry these around all day.
that's what they wanted. Yeah.
And it's only, and what is the range of those radios?
Those should accommodate those campuses.
And that's it.
That's it.
So if something's happening at Cobre High, San Lorenzo's not gonna be able to hear through it with the radio.
No.
Okay,
If we were to do that, we'd have to set up repeaters, and yeah, those are
so I
things
can
that we do have in
speak from
plan.
experience as a teacher, we don't carry those around. They stay in our desk. At the school I'm currently teaching, we're using a software. I think the state is allowing it for free. It's called Rave. I'm not sure if the silver schools are using it as well, but it is a way, it's a touch button way on cell phones to alert the school of either a disturbance, or if there's active shooters, fires, it alerts not only everyone who has that on their phone, but also it alerts central dispatch, which I'm assuming radios do not alert central
No.
dispatch.
Our phone system, there is an app for that that's going to be in there. I'm also in communication with the state for the Rave system as well. We know about that firsthand, and we know it is a free service. So those are all things that are in the works.
Okay, and I would also like, teacher input, staff input on what they would prefer. And because if we give them all these options, right, you have a radio, you have your telephone, you have your cell phone, I think it could be a bit confusing if something were to happen. So maybe we could have more discussion about the way this would be communicated.
I'm sure that's something we could do moving forward. This is it's just a start. We're trying, and we're trying to make it as uniform as possible. We as well know that it's very complicated to have multiple platforms or devices to be in charge of or carrying, or what if I forget this? What if there is an emergency? We are very aware of that, and we do discuss that within the principals' meetings and whatnot.
Just another side note, the radio also has an operational advantage of being able to communicate with all staff pretty much spontaneously, which is not to call alert to everything that's being communicated. And in that sense, some people that I've talked to that were advocates of that said that it definitely improved the ability to operate on a daily basis, being able to communicate so readily with everybody.
Madam President, I'd like to speak to the radios too. As a teacher in an elementary school, we use radios every day, and it's super beneficial for us as staff. Kid gets hurt on the playground, we can call the nurse. So I think it works in different settings for different reasons. But I think the Rave app too is something that Silver Schools uses and is beneficial in an emergency to notify central dispatch. Thank you.
Do we have any further debate on?
No, just a comment. I mean, during some of the policy reviews and some of the finance committee meetings we also had, we listened to our staff and said that was an issue, that we didn't have enough radios. So we opted to, go that route of getting radios for all staff. So.
And then one more on tying on the radios, and this is I guess you could say the most affordable way of approaching this and getting them all a two-way radio, because we're to go through Sierra Communications. It's very expensive for like the handhelds that like the high school have and all that are tied in with the local law.
There's also pending legislation that hasn't been introduced yet, but will be introduced, and it has to do with the capital outlay contribution to the building of a new, for the cost, to offset the cost of a new school. We've looked at the possibility of building a new high school because ours is very outdated and it's very oversized. The estimate that one estimate that's been given to us is started out at 20 million and now it's gone up to between 25 and 30 million. The contribution rate at that time was the district would pay 80% of that cost for that to happen, and the state would pay 20%. Now the contribution is such that the state would pay, I believe it's 53%, and the remaining 47% would come from the state. So I would request that language, that bill be added to our items for supporting legislation, as two of us may be attending the meeting in Santa Fe to do just that. That would give us the authority to advocate for that particular bill. There is no number to it yet, but
Okay,
you can introduce.
but have we received this information regarding that?
That's what I said.
Madam President, may I interject something? I had this in my superintendent report, but since we're on it now, I might as well. They've lowered it 30% is what Mr. Guadiana was saying. And I'm be attending with David Abbey, who's the director of the Legislative Finance Committee. And I'm going up around Thursday to talk to him about, even if they lowered it 30%, asking us to come up with 15 million is, that's impossible. And so the way they've done the entire it may cost us.
And in addition, is something that we're actually asking to have that reduced, whether it's reduced in your process or preferably waived. And if that could be added to the parts of what we're going to advocate in legislation.
Okay. So would someone like to entertain a motion?
I would move that we continue with the legislative initiatives related to our security, including the keyless entry, the cameras, the radios, as well as lobbying for the initiatives related to reducing the costs, the school costs for constructing a new high school at Cobre.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Any debate? Okay, roll call vote. Ms. Dean,
Yes.
Mrs. Begay,
Yes.
Mr. Guadiana,
Yes.
myself, yes. Mr. Pedraza,
Yes.
motion passes. Okay, we'll move on to action item E, accept Freeport McMoran Award for $55,000.
Madam President, this time I'd like to introduce Joyce Aranda, our principal at Central Elementary School. She didn't know she's going to talk, but she knows a lot more about this than anyone else. We were fortunate enough because of her hard work to get the $55,000 for for a welding classroom at Snell Middle School. Is what our plans are to use that. And Joyce, you want to come up, say a few words? Sure you do.
Madam President, members of the board. So the grant was originally written to Freeport for the Community Investment Fund for $50,000. Currently, this year, Snell did start a welding program. They have 2 classes. One period is an exploratory elective where every student in 7th grade, 8th grade, 8th grade goes through the welding class for a 9-week period. The second period, it's an elective class, which I believe there was 11 students enrolled in the class. So what the grant will help provide is welders, welding gloves, safety glasses, welding helmets, welding tools such as pliers, tape measures, wire cutters, wrenches, hammers, files, welding jacket, welding vices, curriculum for the middle school, safety curriculum, grinders, gas cutters, welding hammers, fuel tanks and fuel, rods, and any other equipment that Mr. Young may need to be successful in the welding class. And in addition to that, it would also include the purchase of some metal. So the additional $5,000 that was awarded to us outside of what we requested is to allow the teacher to buy additional metal so that hopefully his students can compete in the, what is the skills? The Skills USA. Mr. Young is hoping to get his students to compete, but in order to do that, he did need some additional metal because that'd be outside of what they're doing in the classroom. And so that's why we got the additional $5,000. So it's a total of $55,000. Any questions?
Thanks.
I have a quick question. Can any of this money be used for travel to that event? The skills
No,
event?
Not here, not with this money.
Okay, and when does the money need to be spent by? Is there a date?
I honestly don't remember. I know there's an end of year report, but I don't remember if the money is to be spent by the end of the year or by the end of the year that it was awarded. So I'm going to have to look into that because I honestly don't remember.
Okay, and have any of those supplies been ordered at all?
No,
Or-
because we need approval to
Okay.
accept this money. And then once that happens, then I will meet with Dr. Beth, right? And Mr. Young so that we can put a requisition together to get this material, some of these materials ordered.
Okay, thank you.
So Mr. Young is going to oversee both classes at the middle school and the high
He's
school?
currently teaching
doing that.
the 2 periods at
Okay.
the middle school, and then the rest of the day he's at the high
High
school.
school. Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ronde. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
You said there were 2 classes, were they both the exploratory elective?
No, one's an exploratory elective that all the 8th graders go through for a 9-week period. And then the second period class is an actual welding class. It's an elective. I believe 11 people at the last information I was given are enrolled in that second period class. It was 11. It was open. Is that what we still have, Ms. Acosta? Do you know? Yeah. That one was open to anybody in the 8th grade who wanted to sign up for the class. So we're hoping that as time goes on, we'll pick up additional enrollments at the middle school, which will have an impact on the enrollment, a positive impact on the enrollment at the high school as well.
6th grade won't be in this.
Currently this year, no, it's whatever Snell decides going forward as how they want to make the welding class look at the middle school. That would be up to them. Mhm.
And facility-wise, has
So
is
those,
there voting going on?
yeah, no. So, and there was a lot of discussion about that. We did try to get some additional funds, but in really looking at the requirements that we would need to be able to, because right now, the way that it's set up, we're going to have to do the welding outside. Mr. Young is aware of that because the facility is not set up to be able to do that indoors. Freeport was looking at the possibility of giving us some additional funds, but we weren't able to really get all the information that we needed. I know Mr. Kennan really worked hard, talked to a lot of people throughout the state and other districts as to what we would need, and we'd probably need to get a metal building, correct? With the cement floor going forward. So Freeport did recommend to us that if that's what we want to do, to get all our ducks in a row, write another application for next year so that we can look at the possibility of helping us to fund that if that's what we choose to do. So we did try to get some more money to get that, but when we realized how comprehensive it was and how much needed to be done, it just didn't work out for this year.
Big step in the right direction.
I think so too. I think it'll be really good for our kids going forward.
Just a suggestion. I realize that it might be hard, but since it's, to me, like welding outside is probably not the best thing to do year round, but even possible to even have to take the students from Snell to the high school to do
Yes.
the
And
classes and
Yes.
yeah.
And I actually, I don't remember if I put that on here as, I put that as an in-kind expense on the $2,000. I did estimate that. And the reason that I did that as an in-kind is because there was money, $10,000 that was allocated for CTE programs through the ARP grant. And then an additional $5,000 through, I believe it was Title IV, that was put to CTE programs too. So some of that money could, yes, be used to transport students to the high school for that to happen.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. I appreciate you going after that, those funds.
Thank you, Ms. Aranda. Madam President, I recommend we accept the Freeport McMorro. Oh, what did I call her? Oh, she used to be a principal at Oñate High School. I apologize, Joyce. Madam
Okay.
President, I recommend that we accept the award.
So we heard a recommendation from our superintendent. Do I hear a nomination, a motion?
Madam President, I move that we accept the donation from Freeport in the amount of $55,000.
I second.
We heard a motion and a second. Is there any further debate? We'll take a vote. Ms. Dean,
Yes.
Ms. Begay,
Yes.
Mr. Guadiana,
Yes.
myself, yes. Mr. Terrazas.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so that moves us to section 4, non-action items. A, update on district submission of 80-day report to PED.
Madam President, it has been submitted and now it's in the state's hands and we're waiting for them to respond to it.
And typically, how long does it take for them to respond?
The districts are given 10 days to get it submitted, and then the state has 10 days to get it to budget. And then budget doesn't have a time limit, so they can take, I don't know how many days they take on it, but hopefully it's a quick turnaround so we can get that information back and see what they finalized and approved.
Okay, thank you. And I'm kind of new. I don't really understand what is in the 80-day report. I know we do student counts, correct?
There's about 24 templates I have to submit to the State Department with different information, and then it has student information, it has staff information, it has transportation information, food service information, program information. Can't think of all of them right off the top of my head, but there's about 24 that we have to submit, and there's different bureaus that we have to submit them to. And they look at the different information. For example, they look, you have your bilingual, your title, your L1, we have the pre-K ones, the Title I programs, again, the transportation, but there's a whole slew of bureaus that receive the information once we submit it to the state, and they review it, and then they let us know if we have to fix something or something was submitted incorrectly. And so we just work with all the bureaus during the time that they're reviewing. And enrollment is part of that too.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, let's move on to B, update on New Mexico Dash compilation.
Madam President, I'm going to turn this over to our new Director of Instruction, Susanna.
Okay, Victor has put a quick link on our district webpage, so you can view the data. And Victor, do you want to walk them through it real quick?
So to access the New Mexico Dash, one second. Let me,
You can
share my
access it
screen.
through the PED website, but Victor put it on our district webpage.
Okay, we made it a little bigger. So
Thank you.
to access it, you'll go to the main district website,
Mhm.
departments, and this is per instructions, Superintendent Spoletta. He wanted it under Suzanne's department, which is curriculum and instruction. So you go there, and the New Mexico Dash is located.
Right there.
There's also a quick link whenever you just hover over the departments and curriculum, you can access it through there. Once in there, you'll click on that little quick link.
And then you choose our district, and then you choose a school. And that's how you access the New Mexico Dash information. Okay? So you all can get on it. You know, I'm not going to go over it
And
because
then you
it,
just select the school like
right.
Suzanne
And then
said.
you'll pull up Bayard. And if you want, you can just pull up one. You'll see the goals that we have. And it starts with at the end of the year, we would like to have 70%. And then you could go to first, second, third. You can, hover over those tabs at the top. And if you go to each school, it looks somewhat similar, but of course their goals are different.
Just FYI, Snell isn't working. It says that it currently has no active plans for Snell Middle School.
Okay. Yeah, I'll because there was so much change at Snell, that's the issue. But we're working on that. Okay.
Anything
So
else?
just take a quick look at that when you get, we can't really go over all of that right now. It'd take quite a long time. But go over that. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. Thank you.
Ms. Chavita, I actually had a question. So do any of these goals align with teachers' PDPs?
Yes,
Is that okay?
exactly.
Okay.
They align most definitely with their PDP.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there any further questions, comments? On the Mexico Dash? Okay. We'll go on to C, update on first quarterly budget review.
Madam President, I'm going to turn this over to our Director of Finance, Frank Ryan.
Yes, that's something I'm still working on right now. I spent quite a few days in these last 2 weeks that school was out. We were off, but I still came in and I worked. I worked on that and other things that had to be done for PED. So I made a lot of progress in that area of getting some reports done to PED that they were asking for, and I'm just about to have it ready to go. And so I'm looking to have some reporting for you here soon. But you have any questions?
I have a clarifying question. So what day did the first quarter end?
It ends September 30th.
And
I have a concern too. The purpose of the quarterly review is to identify, first of all, any potential over expenditure that may be coming up for which we need to prepare for. to that would be identifying those that are not going to be expended that may be available to offset that. As we go in time, the middle of the year gives us less time to be able to address that. We've had expenditures that are over the norm, which most of them are related to personnel and or legal counsel. I would appreciate, having, if there's anything I can do to help you prepare that report.
Right. And I'm in agreement with you. Yeah, this is something urgent, and I'm looking at hopefully, if not this next finance meeting, the next one after that, we should have some good numbers to look at.
It's a little bit over a year ago, I believe it was, that I prepared one that did have the fields that we could use to determine where we had some concerns.
Yes.
And so be happy to
Okay.
share that with you. And
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Any other questions for Mr. Remy? No? Okay, thank you. That moves us on to D, update on Equity Council.
Madam President, I'll turn this over to Melissa Minus.
Okay. Madam President, members of the board, the current update on the Equity Council is we were not able to meet right before Christmas break. So I'm planning a meeting for next week so we can proceed with our readiness assessment. But since then, I meet monthly with our advisor, Sen Burkett, and the state equity team once a month. So I've been attending those meetings, and every district just checks in and talks about progress and different ideas and things that each district is using and models for targeting the target groups. So I think our group is pretty good, and I think I know at first everybody is a little maybe feeling overwhelmed at the data that we have to collect, but now that I understand my role a little bit better, I'll be able to guide them and guide them through the process. It's a daunting task, but the state really wants us to do a good job and put out the numbers that represent our district specifically.
Madam President, I have a quick question. Ms. Minus, would it be possible to work with Silver and Aldo? I don't know if that is a possibility, but with our proximity of doing like a joint equity council to fill some of those spots, has that been discussed?
So it has been discussed at some of our meetings with some of the, charters and schools that work close in proximity. And I think they're pretty flexible as long as we have a plan. And that, again, that we're targeting every group in our districts, specifically. So if they would like to, I'd be open to that conversation. And I believe our district would be too, right, to combine forces.
Right. Okay, thank you.
How many Equity Council members are there currently?
Currently, I have about 10 that are committed. I still need to fill some roles in the parent venue, and definitely had not figured out how to include the students in there yet. So when we talked about it as a team, we were talking about how we could maybe do some meetings maybe during the day, during school hours, to include some students, because after hours we may not get what we need. After hours are difficult. It's difficult during football season, basketball season, because our families especially with multi children, it's hard to pull them away and plan a date that everybody can meet. But we can have a max of 15 plus the facilitator.
Could we possibly use professional development days or those Fridays for potential meeting dates with students, parents? Just because they're already built into the schedule.
We've talked about that too. I know our professional development days are often tied up with our funding with our grant programs and the PDs associated with that. So that sometimes poses a challenge for especially teachers that are on the Equity Council and have to be in another training. So we looked at that as well. So I just think we need to do a little bit of out of the box thinking to make sure that everybody has a chance to voice their input and opinions and come and attend.
Okay, thank you.
Madam President, I have a question as well. So I know that you're kind of behind us. You're still on the same schedule, timeline to get everything together and the data?
Yes.
Okay.
And again, too, the one thing that has been reemphasized with us is that it's a focus on quality, and they really want to make sure that we don't let our students fall through the cracks. So,
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, we'll move on to E, response questions related to staff contract discrepancies relating to employee wages.
Now, Madam President and members of the board, I think there's actually two areas here. One was there was for hourly wage employees, there was a spreadsheet sent out that had incorrect information on it. And I'm confident that our contracts are correct, but the information on that spreadsheet was not correct. And so I think this is something that I can explain. We do have a finance committee meeting tomorrow where I can bring the spreadsheet because this may take a little time to do that.
Mr. Cannon, that
Yeah.
meeting is scheduled for next Tuesday.
Is
I
it next
believe.
Tuesday?
Yes,
All
sir.
right. That's right. We started out and moved it. You're right. I stand corrected. And so I think the other one was there has been contracts handed out to some administrators, and they were asked to change those contracts. And within conversations with the attorney, that the contract, unless both parties decide to void that contract's in place until the end of that contract. So there was concerns about that. And according to the attorney, when I talked to her, that that contract's in place, and you don't change it unless both parties agree to it.
Okay, so I was on the finance committee and we did receive quite a few spreadsheets. Was one of the correct spreadsheets in there? Have we received the correct one?
I will make sure you get a corrected spreadsheet.
Okay.
All right. But I want to stress that I'm confident that the contracts are correct. But the spreadsheet that was handed out, and there was a few of them, they had incorrect information on it. And in a nutshell, it would be like when somebody comes in late after the school starts, and they started them, and now obviously they're working less days. And then if you pay them for those days and all the hourly wage turns out right, and then if you go back and you don't change it on the spreadsheet, then it's going to come out where now they're starting at the beginning of the school year. Obviously, they're working more days. And so it's going to look like they're working less per hour. But the contract was right, but on that spreadsheet was incorrect. And that was handed out.
So the contracts have the correct dates on them.
I'm confident that they are.
And you mentioned also the contracts that were not correct, and there's another contract being made, and the current contract is in place until the other ones are mutually agreed to.
Right.
It's my understanding that some of the contracts that are being rewritten are because they're for administrators, and it's using the teacher contract template for that contract.
And if they're using a teacher contract, that's incorrect. But
So in that case, is the contract being rewritten and the employee asked to review and sign it?
yeah, but in some cases, the contract was different, and it had, for instance, different days they were going to work. And so once you start changing things like that, then and then basically having the employee forced to sign that's incorrect. But to answer your question, yeah, if it was on a teacher contract, we can correct those as long as the important things are right. I'm working this many days and I'm getting paid this much money. And that stuff was correct.
Okay. So in those cases, there is going to be a revised contract.
Right, right.
Okay.
Again, and it's how you present it to the employee. We'll change that. If employee absolutely, they've entered into a contract with you, and you have to honor that contract. If we null and void that contract, well, then what's that make the new contract? If it could be null and void at any time by one party. But we want the form right. You're right. If it's on a teacher's contract, and it's for an administrator, yeah, we need to change that.
Mr. Ken, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
go ahead.
Can you give us a number of how many of those contracts had a teacher contract? So if I'm recalling, I think it was a high number of those contracts that had the teacher
You know what? I couldn't
language.
tell you. I can come back with that information for you.
Okay, thank you.
And I guess I have a question. You were saying, only both parties have to agree to it. However, I've heard of instances when people signed 2 or 3 different contracts. And I don't know if it was made aware to the employee that that was supposed to be a change agreed upon.
It's my understanding the employees were notified. But they were
And could we see a
notified.
documentation of that notification?
Yeah, they brought them to me. They had concerns about it, that they were being asked to change this contract that they had already signed and that they're working under. And I want to get the information right to you. I don't know.
And
that.
I guess I would like to state why this was brought to the board meeting. It was, we did get a spreadsheet but they were, they were less than $15 an hour. And that was a huge concern for us, that our employees weren't being paid the way they should be. So I'm looking forward to having the corrected information sent to us. So we can get this straightened out.
I agree. Thank you.
Any further questions, comments? We will move on to F, Central Elementary Gym construction status.
Madam President, we have requested wage rates. You have to do that now from the state, because obviously when it's a state monies involved, you have to pay a certain rate to each person that's working on the construction. And that took a while. It used to be that the architectural firm would request those rates, and now the owner has to request those rates. And for me to get in there and do that, though, it had 2 other people who were no longer working in the district were in the account, which means I couldn't do it. So this took a while to work this thing out. But we got the wage rates. We're going out for pricing. This would take 14 to 16 days from now to 3 different companies. And so this is not a bid. We're not putting out the bid. We're really getting 3 different prices from 3 different companies. So it's not your normal bid process. And because all 3 of these companies are CES companies, meaning you don't have to go out to bid. That's already been done ahead of time. But there were some concerns expressed by the board, so we went ahead and went out for pricing of 3 different CES companies. And so we should be able to, we've got the permit up at the PSFA, the Public Schools Facilities Authority, that any capital outlay project has to have. This should be a real quick turnaround because they're not providing the money. This was our bond money doing this. And my as I've said earlier, my plan is this thing should be all completed and done for the start of school next year. That's what I'm hoping.
I have a question regarding this. We have paid over $60,000 to the current contractor?
I think that's right, yes. No, contractor, architect.
Architect, sorry, contract architect. Have we paid for services not rendered?
Not that I know of.
Can we take a look at that?
Sure.
Sure, because considering there's just been drawings and.
Sure, I can get you that information.
I'd appreciate that.
Any further questions, comments? Okay, thank you. And so that moves us on to G, status on compliance with fire marshal report.
Madam President, members of the board, the last meeting before break, I said we were about 95%. I think we're still right about that spot. The last thing we did, we had to order the exit signs you see over here. There are a lot of them broken all over the school. Those are about $60 a piece, but they were in back order. Like many things, those of you that are in business or anything, you know that we're back ordered on a lot of stuff, and it's taken longer to get here. It's gotten in. We are installing those. Let me go out on a limb. I'll say by the end of the month, I think we should be 100%.
So the exit signs are the only things that are outstanding at the moment?
We had the exit signs. We've got, for instance, I've got a notified the fire marshal. For instance, they wanted us to move some tanks over in the shops at the high school, and we put them behind some chain link fence. But I don't know, they didn't want them so they wouldn't move at all. Like if we had an earthquake or something like that, I don't know. And there's a few things like that. We want to make sure that that's okay with them. So, and I've been sending them every test we've had, all the testing of our alarm systems and everything. They have all those with them.
Any further comments about the fire marshal report?
When are we due for a reinspection? Are we due for a reinspection?
Not that I know of. That's a good question. They'll let me know. I expect when I say we're 100%, and I'm sure we can do 100% on everything they gave us, they're going to find something. I mean, with that high school over there, they're going to find something again. But I'll call them and I'll get back with you on that.
Yeah, and as far as the 100%, that includes, well, I guess that doesn't address the things that we can't change without, like the kitchen
Right.
venting.
Yes. And they actually kind of gave us a break on that one, but I don't know how long they're going to do that. But as you mentioned the other day, of buying some equipment that maybe when we do build a new high school that we can transfer to the new high school. Because that equipment, we're talking duct work coming out of the kitchens over the stoves. When it's commercial kitchens like that, that's very expensive now. And we would hate to do it twice.
Thank you. And we moved.
Yes.
Okay. So that moves us to the Finance Committee report.
Madam President?
Yes.
We did move Mr. Jaramillo, but I just was to ask when do you want public input, since we did go past it.
It's on, I have it listed as 9.
At
after
9? Okay,
superintendent.
okay.
Madam President, could I ask for a brief recess to call the attorney, let her know that we should be going into closed session in the very near, and in a few minutes? I think she'll be participating via telephone.
Yeah, no, I think we'll have a screen set up for a laptop, right, Victor? Yeah, and I've got mine too.
Okay, can somebody let her know that that should be
Yeah.
starting?
Okay. Thank
I can call her while you guys are doing this. And,
Okay.
That's fine.
about how long you think?
I'd say 10 minutes,
Yeah, hopefully.
about 10 minutes.
Okay, Finance Committee report.
Madam President, currently we haven't had a finance meeting. We have one scheduled for next Tuesday, 4:30. We've allocated 2 hours. Our focus is going to be the salary schedule, and then we're also going to revisit what we're supposed to do as a finance committee, and then all the stuff that Mr. Ryan's going to bring forward.
Okay. Mr. Lewis?
I would like to make a comment that
Or Mr. Lewis, can you come in?
the union was supposed to be included in these finance committee meetings discussing salary schedules. And I was invited in August, and I have not received an invite since.
Have you received any of the salary information that's been sent
I
out?
have not
or
received
scheduled?
anything. Ms. Davis has filled me in a couple of times as to what has happened in the meetings. But I would really like to make sure that I'm included in those so we can all come to an agreement as to what the salary schedule is going to be, especially for the salary schedule meetings.
Can we make sure that we invite Mr. Lewis to our meetings and also include him on the mailing list whenever things are sent out, please? Thank you. And please contact me if that doesn't improve. Thank you. That moves us on to audit committee report.
The audit committee also has not met. We are scheduling a meeting for the 18th to go over any response that we received from the auditors doing the special audits and scheduling, and that's the next item. So I'll let Mr. Ryan discuss that. We're also going to take a look at where we are in preparedness for the coming audit once these special audits are done. And we're also going to take a look at a question that was raised, that I raised regarding the use of or the allocation of money that's comes out of the fundraisers throughout the school that gets taken in by the director of activities and athletics director, I'm sorry. And we're asking for documentation as to how that's recorded, how it's distributed, and how it's actually allocated. So we should bring that to hopefully to a close on the 18th.
Any further comments? Okay, so that moves us on to special audit entrance meeting schedule.
I did hear back from the auditors, and they're just requesting that we go ahead and schedule a time that we could do a 30-minute Zoom meeting. So if you'd like whoever to be available for this meeting, just let me know, and we can set a date and time, and I'll contact them and let them know.
Can we go ahead and schedule that for the 18th at 4:30?
You can do for the 18th. Sure. That
Okay, thank you. Okay, that leads us to superintendent's report.
It's fairly short now because I spoke to you about the legislative session. As most of you are aware of, in the legislative session, historically, the money that comes from the legislature is divided into thirds, with the governor getting a third in the House and then the Senate. Lieutenant Governor Howie Morales has contacted me, and he is definitely going to be helping Cobre schools. And then as we go up to the legislature, I'm going on Thursday to talk about the high school monies. And then also I understand at the end of the month, a couple of the board members are going up. This is a good thing too, that they, and I don't know if you mentioned this before, Mr. Guardiana, but it used to be if this money we're getting now from the legislature, and then when you go to build a big project, they would hold that against you. Hey, we already gave you $100,000, and so they would deduct that. They're not going to ding you anymore for that. So we can get hopefully our $800 and some thousand for our securities, and then when we go to ask money for the high school, it's not going to play into that, which it always did before. But they're not doing that. And I mentioned that I'll be traveling on Thursday with David Abbey to the PSFA. I also wanted to mention I sent out an email to each of the board members. There's a Robert's Rules of Order training on January 20th at Light Hall at Western New Mexico University, 1 to 3. I'll be going. For somebody that's been away from this for 8 years, I need to refresh my memory a little bit. And so I highly recommend anybody really that wants to learn about Robert rules. I think it's going to be really good. And you don't have to do it in person. If you get online there, you can do it virtually. And that's the superintendent report.
Will it be recorded for those of us? Who
Yes, they said they would do that too.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Now, you still have to sign up, I think, and then they will record it and send you something. I think that's the way it works.
Okay, so that moves us to number 9, public input.
Thank you, Board President, board members, Superintendent. I am Horace Jaramillo. I'm a parent. I have one child attending Cobre High School. I'm also a stakeholder in the system. I had placed my request to speak today on the topic that was discussed at the last regular meeting at San Lorenzo Elementary, and that was the 120-day assessment report by the superintendent. And I had submitted written documentation to be placed on the agenda with that descriptive topic. That didn't happen, and that's okay. But I do appreciate you giving me enough time to express my thoughts. The superintendent did cover the topics of 120-day assessment of the Cobre school system. I'm going to refer to it as items because I believe the platform that you as board members selected is transparency. The way I define transparency is we all see it. Definitely clear, without any doubt. So let's consider them as items for all sake. The items that were introduced were well received by the board. As I recall, the board recognized the superintendent for his transparency, if I'm not mistaken. And this is the platform that you as board members selected to seek and follow, total transparency. And this is something that has been brought up for several years, transparency. And because of that, I think you accepted that report. And those items, we own them. And we need to put those items behind us so they won't try to drag us any further down. Anytime you have a situation like that, we always have an issue of saying we're going to make things better or move forward. I'm recommending this board place those items on the as an item of conversation for every upcoming meeting as unfinished business until those items are satisfied or settled. That way we can move forward. The objective is to succeed. I also want to introduce some items. I've evaluated the school for over 11 years. I've had direct involvement with Central Elementary for 8 years. I know how difficult things are here. And I'm gonna indicate is my assessment is incomplete. And the reason I say that is because if you recall, I requested an invitation to the tour of the high school, along when those teachers or one teacher representative requested that the board tour the high school. I stood up and requested that I be included. That being an oversight or discrimination, I was not included. I therefore request that my plea be satisfied. I'm requesting the superintendent and the high school principal to satisfy my request whenever you can schedule that in. Thank you. As with any organization, there are trends of operational issues. And this happens more when you involve public service, such as education, local and state government, hospital services, and such. At one point, this area, we nearly almost lost Fort Bayard Medical Center. The county faced financial hardship and turmoil. Gila Medical Center was almost privatized. Silver Schools has had phases of turmoil and controversy. Cobre Consolidated now is faced with to find a path to succeed. And therefore, I'm going to introduce something that has come to light by some employees through phone call. And I'm going to introduce them as items because you as a board have to see if they're clear, if they're transparent, if they're truthful. That's your obligation. First of all, the contractor, the professional contractor that you selected to find candidates for superintendent might have failed us. Or the lack of this board to meet the pre-employment conditions set by this district for all applicants. Lack of consistency is evidence of failure for the lack of background check required by the district for all applications. Loss of connection between teachers and students, because this year they've been bombarded with new policy standards. Teachers feel that they are looked at as not compliant and have lost the ability to be creative teachers. Criticism and possible denial of time off requests, even if employees have accumulated benefits. Educators work well beyond the school hours and the work week, grading, lesson plans, responding to parent emails, and thinking of those students that are struggling due to personal issues and trends of social breakdown. There is more to teaching than what we see on the surface. The last thing we need is an environment of intimidation, criticism, character judgment by any level of administrator. Denial of teachers that request a transfer from grade levels to grade levels or educational topics have been denied. And they felt like their position is my way or no way, maybe even the highway. The Cobre School District has hired a law firm, and it seems like it's continual basis that we need that firm. Employees now have legal counsel to protect them from current operational methods. I'm going to ask, is this going to be the common trend to be employed by the Cobre schools? Students feeling that they are inbound to a correctional institute instead of an educational institute. Lack of recognition of educators and staff members when they contribute to special events and community projects held this year and in the prior years, well beyond the 40-hour work week. I am working to compile a summary of the employees that worked on the Summerfest, Thanksgiving Basket Project, and other events. I wish to know the amount of time dedicated to meet the task to host these events. I've known that teachers put half of their income back in the classroom. And I know that there's more credit due to those events than just a specific few. Social media such as YouTube portrays a sole individual. On the Cobre website or search sites. Social media should promote student programs, projects, capital investment construction updates, and other information. The lack of recognition of boys and girls sports, music, arts, and other programs that students step up and represent the school. Regardless of the scoreboard outcome, regardless of the seasonal standings, these students should be profiled as true representatives of the district. There are factors identified that have been brought to light. That superintendent given 3 days to sign the contract or face termination. Staff members need to reapply selective cleansing approach. All of these are examples of concerns that have been brought to light. Which brings me to the letter of concern that I authored and I submitted to you, board members, to the legislative body that represents Grant County, and to PED. All in the effort of transparency, to bring it to light, to put an end to it, to move forward, to succeed. Employees contacted me, how do we approach this? So I advised them. Employees and staff stepped forward, submitted their concerns to be transparent. Submit a statement summarizing the current work environment as an unsafe, hostile, inappropriate management method of operations. That includes harassment, intimidation, criticism, threatening, and non-ethical methods of management. I know they were scared to sign that document, but they did so. And I'm going to submit to you that same document for record, including my cover letter. I asked for these employees to be covered under the Federal Whistleblower Act of 1989 and the No Fear Act adopted in 2002. Employees are protected from any sort or intention of retaliation by this public service organization, which incorporates federal funding. It is you as a board of directors to undertake the responsibility to identify a resolution to all these items, 120-day assessment, my items introduced today, and the document provided by those individuals that signed and I submitted for the record. We are facing global disconnect with no regard to borders, human rights, political views, religious teachings. We have total social breakdown. I think it is time to ask ourselves, who are we as a nation, as a community, as a district, as parents, as students, and as a person? Ask ourselves, can we do better? Do we have the trust and faith in our leadership to make things better? And live up to the motto, Cobre Pride. We can work together to resolve these issues or continue the practice of ruling with an iron fist. You as a board select the direction we take. Now I am here, not as a troublemaker. And I don't know how many employees I represent and stand at this podium to speak for. It might be many, might be a few, but I'll stand here for one. And the reason for that is because I am a medically challenged survivor of a work environment that is dangerous. I have a scar in my chest, a device that keeps my heart going, because I faced those elements. I fought the elements because I believed in the service that I had to provide as a public servant till I retired. And I will represent any individual in any organization, especially in public service, so they won't walk my shoes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Jaramillo. Do we have any further public input? And we don't have a student report today either. Okay, so that moves.
I motion that the board go into executive session, a limited personnel matters as permitted under sections 10-15- also limited personnel matters and personally identifiable information about any individual student or as permitted under section 15-10-15-1 H2 and 10-15-1 H4 of the New Mexico Open Meetings Act, specifically so that the acting superintendent can update the board and the legal counsel can advise regarding investigation of student, incident, and related personnel matters.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we heard a motion and a second. Any debate? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Ms. Dean,
Yes.
Ms. Begay,
Yes.
Mr. Guadiana?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Mr. Terrazas?
Yes.
Okay, so that puts us in closed session at 6:34 p.m.
You guys are good to go. Stream's on.
Okay, so we're going to reconvene an open session at 7:25 PM. And no, wait, what do I read it? Okay. We met for the following purposes: limited personnel matters as permitted under sections 10, 15, 1, H2 of the New Mexico Open Meetings Act, specifically so that legal counsel can update the board regarding the status of investigations of internal and external complaints against the superintendent, limited personnel matters, and personally identifiable information about any individual student as permitted under sections 10-15-1 H2 and 10-15-1 H4 of the New Mexico Open Meetings Act, specifically so the acting superintendent can update the board and the legal counsel can advise regarding investigation of student incident and related personnel matters. And no action was taken in executive session, and the discussions were limited to personnel matters. So do I hear a motion for adjournment?
A motion to come back into.
Oh, a motion to come back into open session.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to come back into reconvene in open session.
I'll second.
Okay, we had a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Ms. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Begay?
Yes.
Mr. Guadiana?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Mr. Terrazas?
Yes.
We're back in open session. Do we say 7:25 or 7:27?
Make it 7:26.
Put it in between. Okay, so is there a motion for adjournment?
Madam President, I move that we adjourn.
So move.
Second.
We're adjourned at 7:27. Thank you.
Very good. Good job.